Alright, it is 8:04, March 18th, Toonami Society, episode 16 on flow states. It is I, Gabriel Shahrouz, joined by the one, the only, Jack Padding. Not Jack Paddington.
Jack Padding, yes, that would be me.
Jack
I am very glad to be here.
Oh, I'm glad to have you, Jack.
If you're not my announcer voice for this.
I like that. I appreciate that. You know, if I was going to have a one-on-one session, I'm glad it would be with you or Allie. Two people I truly care about and enjoy their company. So, yeah, looks like we'll be rocking it, you and I, for this session. We might have a surprise guest.
Groovy Tuesdays, man.
Usually I'm a little bit more prepared, but as I mentioned earlier, I kind of rushed down here. I rode the bike, grabbed the legal pizza burrito, didn't have time to set up my normal lighting. I did light the incense, but I normally have a definition of flow states, or the definition handy, so I'll go ahead and look at that on the text.
Well, as it's just the two of us, I feel like we both have a relatively decent grasp on it, but it's always good to redefine the terminology that we're trying to talk about for the next
that's true.
period of time.
That's true. So the way that I defined it in the group text is a flow state, also known colloquially as being in the zone, is the mental state of operation in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment in the process of the activity. Also, in essence, flow is categorized by complete absorption in what one does and a resulting loss in one's sense of space and time. Source, Wikipedia.
Ooh, good one.
And then I also have a little psychology blurb that I feel like you might enjoy, Jack. When we engage in an activity that we enjoy and that gives us enough challenge to our skills, we become absorbed in that activity and reach a state of flow in which we are totally focused. We feel a sense of serenity. We feel a sense of timelessness. We have a feeling of inner clarity. Above all, we are not conscious of ourselves or the world around us. Flow is similar to a state of ecstasy.
I like it.
Boom! That's what I got.
I feel like that's pretty spot on. But yeah, the whole concept of flow in general is pretty interesting, just because it's one of those things that some people experience on a daily basis and some people might never experience in their life. I mean, it's really just dependent on what you're doing, your, skill set prior to doing that, and just generally how comfortable you feel with it.
I would agree so. But I would pose the question to you, Jack.
No,
have you felt the sense of a flow, or have you achieved this flow state?
Only one time in my life.
96, Madison Square Garden?
Nah, dude, AB8 in the lab, baby. For those of you who don't know, the AB8 is an autofilling machine that is very monotonous, where you're doing the same thing for hours on end. Although I would actually argue that I've gotten into a state of flow on the AB8 before. I wouldn't say it's my only one or my most intense one, but there's definitely something about just doing a repetitive task that, you can fuck up, but if you just kind of get confident with it, you kind of just get that, confidence momentum almost to the point where you're just like, okay, I haven't been fucking this up, so I'm probably not going to fuck this up. And then, your brain kind of shuts off. I just kind of felt like it was, getting into almost a meditative state at points when you're just doing it. But, yeah, it's kind of interesting, just those little everyday tasks that you can run into where you can kind of actually get into a flow state.
Now, for our listeners, because there's at least a few, do you want to explain what you did on the AB8 that still to this day has not been vanquished?
I did create a record on it, all thanks to flow. So basically the AB8 is an autofilling machine. So we are both employees at a leading hemp company in the United States, and essentially we fill up numerous bottles with oil every day. And by numerous, I'm talking thousands of bottles. But essentially, there's this one small machine that's, about the size of 3 shoeboxes stacked on top of each other. And you essentially have a big drum of oil on one end and then a little nozzle on the other end. You take a big old sleeve filled with bottles, cut the top off of it, so you're left with anywhere from like 48 to 192 bottles in a sleeve. And then you essentially turn the ABA to the right setting, put your foot on a pedal like a sewing machine, and then basically just start filling up the lines, going back and forth, and trying not to miss a bottle. But if you do miss a bottle, oil goes everywhere, you have to clean it up, and it is humiliating. So try to stay away from that.
And you, one day in particular, ran it from, if I remember, roughly 8:55 a.m. to approximately 4:45 p.m.
Oh no, it was like 5:30. It was definitely over an average shift.
You ran it all day, and from what I remember, you didn't even like make a spill or like.
I don't think so, actually. I think that was like a perfect day for me, because I would go weeks on end without like having a spill on the AB8. But yeah, that day specifically, I mean, I was dead set to beat somebody else's record for pouring in a day, and I managed.
So I gotta ask, what was your secret to success? What was your recipe for achieving that state? Was it good old-fashioned uppers, downers, Buddhist and meditation, breathing techniques, mindfulness?
It wasn't uppers and downers. It's just a bunch of lefters and righters, you know.
Well played. Well played, Jack. But, you know, how did you keep yourself focused? Whether it was podcasts in your ear or
I mean,
music?
Granted, like I would definitely listen to like podcasts on occasion, but I mean, as always, there's some good tunes playing in the lab. I'm sure that helped at times. I'm sure that did the opposite of helping at times, depending on what the song was. But I really think it's just like, yeah, just that concept of just having something that you know you're capable of doing, but also knowing that you could mess it up. So kind of being a little nervous that you could mess it up while simultaneously knowing that you probably won't, and just being confident in, yeah, that latter feeling.
Or was it really that $10 Amazon gift card, Jack?
It was a hemp Patagonia shirt as a reward. Thank you much.
Oh, nice, nice. All right. So, in a psychological sense, you might cite positive reinforcement, or
positive reinforcement, definitely, and then competition as well. Because I mean, there's only one other person who poured more than that before, so that person created the reward, and I was just tempted to get it.
Well, you know, Jack, I will say to this day that record has not been vested. So
no, not yet. I don't know.
One day.
We did just hire Alec.
We did, and the kid's talented, I'll tell you.
But at the same time, no one's ever going to be using the AB8s at the same level we were at that point in time, so feeling pretty confident.
The record will never be beat.
Oh man, but yeah, flow it's definitely an interesting thing, and I remember like learning about it in like different psych classes and stuff, and being just generally intrigued, because it's like there's being focused on something and there's being motivated and excited to do something, but flow kind of differs in that it's like you're not actively like really excited about what you're doing. You're like you kind of like lose yourself, or like your consciousness almost. Like you just get so into it that you're no longer thinking about the task at hand. Well, I mean, you are, but like you're not consciously thinking about other things. You're just kind of like in the moment doing what you're doing. But what I've personally realized with myself is it's almost like lucid dreaming, in that as soon as I realize that I'm in a flow state and I'm like, man, I've been doing this for the last half hour, I've been fucking killing it, I'm out of it. Like literally, like there's something about like recognizing you're in a flow state that for me personally just kind of pulls me out of it, which is disappointing, but at the same time, like, I don't know, yeah, it reminds me of lucid dreaming or something like that.
It's like the archer pulling the bow for the 10,000th time and being like, oh man, this is awesome. Then he pulls it and doesn't realize he's actually thinking about it, and then whoop, misses it.
Exactly. But what's also interesting is like the subjective experience of time you kind of experience in a flow state, because like normally, like if you're, I don't know, doing something that you're not excited in, it'll seem like it's taking forever. But if you actually engage in a flow state and, I don't know, become one with the flow state, you kind of lose a sense of time. You don't really know like how long it's been. So I'll even like, I don't know, I've been climbing every day for the last like couple months, and well, every day after work. I'm not crazy, but in climbing, it's just like at first I was not comfortable in doing it. It was like embarrassing just being there because like everybody else around you is just way better. You're looking at little kids that are just scampering up stuff that you could never imagine doing. But then after a while, you get more confident, you get more calm, you get more into it. And now it'll get to points where like I'll start climbing and like you just get into a flow state. You know, you're just like doing something that you enjoy, and like maybe it's like a problem that you've done a couple times before, but for the most part, like you just kind of start climbing and then like blink and then you're just at the very top of it. And like, I don't know, maybe it's just since it's like something that's enjoyable or something that's, I don't know, more pleasurable than just using the ABA, a little bit more rewarding. Maybe you're more likely to pop into a flow state then, but I don't know, I've always found that to be kind of interesting.
I found myself wondering, do you have to have had mastered something to achieve flow, or can flow come just from like you organically as a person?
Well, being the jack of all trades and the master of none, I can say that having mastered nothing, I've still gotten flow states in certain places. I don't know. I feel like mastery definitely assists in a flow state, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a prerequisite.
I think that's fair. In the words of a jack I previously knew, that's fair. That's fair. I love that. Yeah, for me, I find myself reflecting on a lot of questions on how do you achieve flow, like a flow state. Because, you know, I think of you with aviation. You didn't just one day pick it up and say, oh, I got this. I mean, you might have played Grand Theft Auto and been like, oh, okay, like, this totally translates. Like, up is down, down is up. Like, okay, I can do this.
I was flying planes far before my parents let me play Grand Theft Auto.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But, you know, then at the same time, we live in a world where I find myself asking, can you achieve a flow state with the use of substances? And, you know, there's some great examples of, you know, I'm thinking of, man, the name is not coming to me, but there's a famous jazz musician who, Charlie Barker, I believe, who, you know, he achieved a flow state, but he only achieved it when he was fucked up.
Yeah.
When he was sober, he couldn't do it. And, you know, we find that again and again in music.
It's like what they say about Hendrix, you know? Yeah. Like, I mean, granted, this could have all been extrapolated quite a bit. But yeah, people would say that he would do, like, shitloads of psychedelics before he would go on stage, like, every single time. And, like, granted, he had, like, actual synesthesia and stuff, which probably psychedelics may have exacerbated a bit. But, I don't know. I feel like it is definitely something to take into consideration, you know, like being on substances and getting into a flow state. But I feel like it depends on your personal experience with that substance and just generally like your body chemistry. Because like, I don't know, like some people, I don't know, might only be able to get into a flow state like when they're on certain stimulants, like all these like, I don't know, majority of the kids that are going to universities now and are like prescribed Adderall and stuff like that, like I'm sure they can only get into like a academic flow state if they're on Adderall. But then like at the same time, if you took like a Buddhist monk and gave them Adderall and were like, go meditate, they'd be like, what is going on right now? Like, this is very aggressive. And like, I don't think that would benefit their flow state. But like, I don't know. It's interesting.
I agree. And then there's examples of musicians like Stevie Ray Vaughan who are like phenomenal. Like Stevie Ray Vaughan, from what I've heard and what I've seen in old videos, like he crushed it and he did great. And there was a brief period where he was sober and people were like, man, Stevie, you're like great and all, but man, you suck now.
Kid Cudi, man.
And
like
then he
literally
went back to it and he, like, people were like, no, that's the Stevie Ray I knew, man.
Well, that's the thing. Like growing up, I mean, like, Kid Cudi, when I was, like, younger, was totally, like, one of my favorite rappers, just because, I don't know, like, I'm not super into rap, but his is just such a unique type of music, and, like, just his lyrics I've always thoroughly enjoyed. But I went to my first concert when I was, like, I don't know, in high school. I was, like, 15 or 16, and I went to, like, a Kid Cudi concert at, like, the Target Center. And it was right after he had publicly announced that he was no longer, like, that he was sober, basically. He was, like, no longer doing coke, no longer, like, smoking cannabis, anything like that. And at the show, like, it was still pretty fresh from when he said that, and he was still singing all of his old songs that obviously he sang a million times in concert. So it was, like, a fantastic show. But then after that, like, this was, like, right after, like, Man on the Moon 2 and stuff, and then, like, he stopped smoking, and then released, like, Indica and, like, a bunch of these, like, I don't know, new, like, space jammy kind of, like, albums. And, like, I don't know, like, I I just couldn't get into him, man. And I hate to say, like, it's just because he got off drugs and he's just not as good now. Because, like, I'm all for sobriety and people, I don't know, having artistic freedom and doing what they want to do. But it's like, at a certain point, like, if you make your career off of, like, something, then you just completely change your game. Like, you gotta understand your fans might not follow you there.
I agree, man. And if that is how you market yourself and your brand, then you change what makes you you, or alters, or helps you alter that state to achieve that level of, or that place of ecstasy, that place of flow. Yeah, I could see how some people would be like, no, man, this isn't the same.
Well, definitely. And Kid Cudi, like, I mean, like Snoop Dogg was like the weed rapper,
yeah.
But like coming out, like, I don't know, like almost all of Cudi's songs mention weed at some point. So it's just like when he like adamantly was like going out in public and be like, I am no longer smoking and stuff, and then starts making music that is just like far different from stuff that he'd done in the past. I don't know. I feel like there's notable change there.
Agree. Yeah, there was a gentleman who I really admire, named Jeff Lieberman. He's an artist and a scientist. He's attended the Conference of World Affairs for many years previously, and I really liked his approach to achieving that flow state. Was, the mind likes to create a lot of blocks for itself, blocks that don't even exist.
Yeah.
So being able to bypass those blocks or trick your mind is one of the most helpful techniques ever. And I thought it was really beautiful because for that event, Jack, there's they give you 2 weeks before the event, they tell you what topic you're going to do. And so many people, when they find out, they start researching, almost like the Toonami Society. If they know the topic beforehand, they're studying it, they're looking it up, they're watching YouTube videos on it. And this guy, the last 2 times he came, he was like, No, I get that. And I would do that. I'd write down notes, and I'd have my little notebook of things I wanted to cover when we do these talks.
Uh-huh.
And specifically, I'd design it so nobody would tell me the event until I was in my seat.
Yep.
And we'd start the talk, and they'd say, all right, cool, the talk tonight is on flow states. And he just kind of let his mind go from there.
Interesting.
And implementing the Buddhist notion of allowing yourself to be in the present moment, to achieve like a fuller you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, man. I thought that was a pretty interesting technique to challenge yourself to, I don't know, be in the present moment and achieve that level of flow when you least expect it. I thought there was something pretty cool about that.
In doing that too, like, it's interesting just because it's like, by not studying something beforehand and not having any clue what it's going to be, I feel like you cut out a lot of anxiety about like, oh, did I research this enough? Did I research the right stuff? Because you're just going into it like, I'm here. Like, I know what I know. I don't know anything from Google, which like, that's pretty awesome. But like, I don't know, it kind of, that to me almost sounds like the concept of like, I read this like peer-reviewed journal article, and it was like, basically talking about, because I took like this psychology of exercise class at CU, but it was basically talking about like individuals who don't stretch before they like work out, or like professional athletes that like won't stretch before they do stuff. And it actually showed that like if you don't stretch before something that like you're relatively comfortable doing or have done in the past, you'll actually be able to have like 15 to 20% more stamina in that activity. So like if you cut out stretching, you'll arguably be able to do it longer, but then it's like the trade-off of like not stretching and like fucking yourself up while you're trying to like work out or do anything like that. But just that whole concept of like not stretching before you work out or go do like your physical activity, because it'll give you that little bit more power, kind of just seems, I don't know, it seems like it kind of correlates with that. Like, yeah, just don't research anything, don't stretch before you go to the conversation, just do it, and like you might fail, or you might be 20% better than you would have been.
I like that, man. It reminds me of the business idea of plans. Plans are useless, but planning is indispensable.
See, I would completely agree on that. And it's, I don't know, it's interesting. I've always kind of found that like if I'm traveling and I'm going somewhere, I will have a far better vacation if I don't do any pre-trip planning. Like if I just like get a plane ticket and go somewhere, I will have a far better time than like trying to like 3 weeks beforehand like plan out every day, every activity, like Google Maps to all the places I'm going to go and stuff. And like granted, you might be able to get more stuff done and see more things that way. But like if you're actually trying to, I don't know, experience a culture, I feel like the best way to do it is just kind of hucking yourself into it and like talking to people and be like, so what's worth doing here? And like I feel like that'll give you better experiences than just like, I don't know, TripAdvisor.
Full on immersion, very Anthony Bourdain.
Precisely.
Hero's journey, delving right into it, crossing the threshold, taking it as it comes. You know, I've tried that in the past, and I've learned that, you know, each person's kind of, it's like learning styles. As you grow, you figure out what works for you might not work for others. And I appreciate that, Jack, and I very much value that. I'm learning. I'm a man who says that he wants that, but in theory, but in actuality, I'm like, no, what are we doing? See, I gotta get in my steps and let me be able to Google that. What's the name of that restaurant? Oh shit, they only got 3-star reviews. Not today. And I think that's a pretty healthy way to look at it, as your way, Jack, of just delving in and jumping into it.
Definitely. Like, it can have negative experiences. Like, I went to, I don't know, Japan over the summer with, like, a couple buddies, and we didn't plan out anything. We got there, and then we were, like, looking for hostels, and, like, we're all on a budget, but, like, there was, like, some options open. There was, like, the lower price bracket, the medium price bracket, and, like, higher ones, and, like, it's Tokyo, so whatever time you go there, you're going to be able to find a room.
Which bracket were the sleeping pods in?
Sleeping pods would have been like middle to high, I would say.
Really?
Oh, just you wait. So I got to Tokyo, and I paid $6 a night at a hostel that was probably like a 45-minute train ride out of like central Tokyo or whatever. And it was a fantastic experience. Not something I would ever do again, but like we literally like stroll in, and like the hostel owners is just like some like husband and wife that are essentially like renting out like their hostel, which is, I don't know, maybe like a big house. But we got there, neither of them really spoke English. We finally like figured out the payment thing, paid for like 3 nights. And then they like lead us over to our room, and there's like 4 bunk beds stacked like right next to each other on one corner, 2 bunk beds stacked next to each other on the other corner, and then there's like a little closet. So me and my 3 homies got the top of like all of the 4 bunk beds that were in a row. So like there wasn't any separators. Like we're literally like our legs are touching each other when we're sleeping, we're snoring in each other's faces and stuff. But then that was like the first night, and like we went out that night and like got back to the hostel like a little later, came in, everything was cool. But then like the next day we had like fun day in Tokyo, came back to the hostel kind of early, and like we were planning on having like an early night, not trying to like go out or do anything like that. And like 9:30 rolled around, and we're all just like chilling like on these top bunks, like I don't know, hanging out in the room, bullshitting. And then the owner of the hostel like comes in, and he like we're the only people in the room, it's just the 3 of us up there, and he just like looks at us, and we kind of like look at him, and he's just like, "Arigato, good night." And then he opens the closet door to the room, and there's like a little sleeping pad and a pillow, and this dude just lays down in the closet and shuts the door, and we didn't see him until 8 a.m. Like, the owner of the hostel was sleeping in the closet of our room. So in not doing prior trip planning, I probably could have stayed somewhere better, but I think that's a story that's going to stick with me in time in the grave.
I mean, that's I can understand the functionality behind it.
100%, man.
Like, did he just rent the space and he's like, no, this will be the hostel space, I'll sleep in the closet?
I would assume so. I mean, I don't know. When we first got into the hostel, we didn't think there was anybody there, and we rang the bell that was on the counter, and his wife actually popped up from the floor behind the desk where she was taking a nap, and like proceeded to attempt to help us out.
Check.
It was an experience. It was a fantastic trip, but I must say, if I had done a little prior planning, I probably could have stayed in a sleeping pod.
I think that would have been fair, Jack. But you know, I am reminded of a famous saying from The Simpsons, which is, nothing's ever a waste if you do learn something from it. And it seems like that certainly taught you a lot.
Oh, 100%. I've had so many weird hostel experiences, but they've all been character building experiences. So
I would imagine, Jack, you have had a whole heap ton of adventures and a whole plethora of opportunities to explore the whole world, which is pretty cool.
Quite a handful, but let's go United.
Strike that from the record. But in regards to flow states, I'm wondering, Jack, what are some things that have helped you in your life to achieve that state or get to that state or really enable you in a positive sense to get you to that mindset, to that
so I
place.
would say for me personally, like actually getting into a flow state, I think like the number one most important thing for it is like defined set of goals. Because like if you just go into a task and like you're still trying to figure out like your end goal to the task, like you're probably not going to get into a flow state. But if you can like clearly define like the goal at hand, sub goals to complete that, and then you just start checking those off the list, I feel like that really helps me kind of get in that flow of things.
Do you think that you can achieve that organically without setting up that checklist? Or for you found that having that checklist, having that set of goals, having that structure...
The thing is, like, it's not even necessarily that, like, I'm writing it out on a piece of paper. I mean, some of the times it could even be subconscious. I mean, but for the most part, like, I feel like just really, like, having something that you're working towards and, like, I guess flow in a work sense over flow in, like, an organic, creative sense. Because I feel like those are two different types of flows, Like, you can either just be, like, kind of getting shit done for a purpose and like really getting the hang of it, or you can be like skiing or something like that, where like it's something that you just enjoy and then like your mind turns off and you're just like, wow, I'm the best skier on this goddamn mountain.
like you doing those naked backflips or whatever that you showed me on your camera.
Precisely. I was in a flow state doing those naked backflips, man.
I bet you were in some state of mind on that. Damn, Jack. God damn.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I was reflecting on that too. Just the idea of being in the flow of things and kind of letting your mind kind of settle like still water. And yeah, it was really interesting reflecting on this topic because there's something very mythical, something very quasi-religious about this, of achieving this certain state of mind where you're able to just be in it and go with it. But like you said, the moment it's kind of like Buddhist meditation via enlightenment. Like the moment you've like had it and it's tangible and it's graspable.
It's in the palm of your hand.
And you're like,
gone!
And it's gone.
It's like that South Park episode where he's putting his money in the bank and it's gone! But I just put $50 in there and it's gone! Yeah, no, totally, man. Like, I feel like that's definitely part of it. Also, like, I feel like having, like, not necessarily positive, but just, like, immediate feedback, too. Like, I feel like if you are doing something where you don't have, like, kind of, like, positive reinforcement while you're in the flow state, or, like, you can't realize that you're, like, doing those things, you get, like, kind of confused by, I don't know, the feedback that you're getting from the flow state, you're probably not going to get into it. But, like, if you're, I don't know, filling up bottles on the ABA and you look down, you're halfway through, you're like, oh, that's feedback right there. I haven't fucked it up yet. Like
that reminds me of that gentleman I mentioned earlier. When I had a chance to actually sit down with him and my friend Addison and chat with him, he's an inventor, and he had this idea of teaching people golf. Mm-hmm. It takes you. I'm imagining you golf quite a lot, Jack.
Less than you'd expect.
Wow, I'm surprised about
Pretty
that.
Pretty bad at it.
But there's that certain form that you have to actually strike, and so when you're with somebody who's your trainer, they're constantly improving your form, telling you how to adjust, how to alter your technique. He actually thought about creating a suit that had a variety of different motors on it, that as you were doing
live time feedback,
gives you live feedback, and would help you adjust your form to a point where when you do it,
it just becomes natural.
It just becomes natural, and it's fascinating.
That is cool though, because like muscle memory is like a huge part of like, I don't know, like hobbies, sports, stuff like that. But like being able to not mentally train muscle memory, but physically train muscle memory, like that's an intriguing concept right there.
Bypassing the whole mentor-student relationship, just slapping on some machinery, some high-tech equipment, or an AV8 and just fucking riding it out, man.
That is interesting, though. I mean, just the general, like, suits that they're making nowadays, right? All different things, like helping people golf like that, like deaf people who can't, I don't know, want to experience music, like there's suits that they can put on and literally like feel vibrations of different notes in different parts of their body to give them that experience of music that they couldn't necessarily get apart from like standing in front of a subwoofer. But I don't know, I think, yeah, it's interesting the way technology is kind of going.
I do like that sort of old school mythical take though on when you're learning and you're gaining knowledge and you're gaining a sense of mastery on something. It's always helpful to have somebody there who serves as kind of a, you know, in a Joseph Campbellian sense, who acts as a spiritual aid or a mentor to you and kind of helps you to nudge you in the right direction.
Definitely.
Give you that on the spot feedback of you're fucking it up. This is how you do it. I think there's something valid about that.
Yeah, I feel like just having somebody like that, whether it be a mentor, coach, whatever it is, like just having that positive and negative feedback when you need them. So like when you do something that's not that great and they're like, hey, like, okay, that wasn't the best that you've ever done it, like this is like what you could do better, or like, hey man, like you killed that was awesome. Mm-hmm. But then also like not like getting like, I don't know, keeping your ego in check, where like if you do something that's good, there's like, good job, and like, oh my god, that was amazing. Whereas if you were just by yourself, you're like, that was the best thing I've ever done. Like, oh my god, this is great. But then like when you have somebody who's like, yeah, no, like that was good. Like you looked a little sloppy on like that one part, and you're just like, oh, okay, so it wasn't perfect. But just having that feedback is, I feel like, is huge for, I don't know, succeeding, just generally growth.
I would definitely agree, and I feel like when you don't have that structure or that element in place, there takes a huge sense of, I would say, responsibility on the part of the individual to recognize where they're lacking, where they can do better, where they can grow, where they can improve. And I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like that, and if so, I'd love you to speak to it. But you know, I just keep reflecting on the cruiser ride where like, you know, here I am every week leading all these hundreds of people down these creek paths and doing all these things, but
parking garages.
You know, nobody was there to hold my hand. Nobody was there to be like, "Oh, hey, this is how you do it." I really had to find what worked for me, and it led to a lot of confidence issues, bouts with insecurity, doubts, a lot of doubts. But eventually, I got to a place where I'm like, this. And this, okay, everybody just follow me, let's go do it.
Exactly, that's the thing. I mean, having that doubt and having those insecurities and stuff has instilled confidence in you, you know? It's like, you can't be confident in something without having already been insecure about something, having already sucked ass at something. But then, like, once you realize that, like, you're not actually horrible at it, it's something that you can improve on, that makes you feel confident in your abilities, and then, I don't know, it progresses from there until you're really killing it at something.
Yeah, and then you're just leading people with a light up little lightsaber toy and music trailer
fucking
and
sheriff's badge.
Fucking fake little sheriff's badge, and you just fucking ride it out, you know, man?
Totally, dude. It's it's one of those interesting things, and like, I don't know, I feel like, I don't know, did you ever play like any sports when you were a kid? Did you ever have any like coaches ever?
You know, Jack, the only sports I played were on the TV screen.
Ooh. NFL, NHL.
But I imagine you probably played some. You could speak to that.
Yeah, so I mean, growing up in northern Minnesota, I like grew up skiing in the winter, and then summers lots of swimming, lacrosse, tennis, football, sports like that. I don't know, my parents pushed my brother and I when we were kids to just fucking try everything. Like, we were on so many teams when we were like little kids, and then obviously you start realizing like, this sport is not for me and I do not like my teammates, and then your parents like, okay, like we can cut soccer out right now, like you can focus on these other things. But in doing so, I excelled at skiing. I was a ski racer growing up in northern Minnesota, and it was tough. Like, you'd have practice like 3 to 4 days a week, and like you would literally be out there skiing at night under lights on like icy fucking hills, and be like negative 10 degrees. And I don't know, the thing is, like, at times it would suck, but like you'd have great coaches who, like, you would do a run, they'd be like, yeah, that was great, and then other times they'd be like, that was not great, like what do you think happened there? And just generally having that like relationship with someone, and a relationship with a coach is weird because like half of the time you love them, and half the time you're just like pissed off at them for telling you that you can be better and that wasn't great. And like, I don't know, it's almost like a parental relationship, but at the same time I feel like a coach can almost push you a little bit more than a parent can, just because it's not like they're not your parent. And like if you're pissed off at them, like it doesn't affect their life after you leave practice, so it doesn't really matter. But like I had some very dickish coaches like skiing when I was younger, but I feel like they definitely made me the naked backflip skier I am today.
Jack, for some reason that doesn't surprise me. It's good for me. I visualize it as it's good for somebody to give you a wall to push up against, like
most definitely.
Like come at me, bro.
Yeah,
you're pissed off about skiing. Come at me.
Oh yeah,
get pissed.
Oh yeah.
Get into that anger.
No, it's great, but like once you have somebody that's instigating you to get in there, like it brings you somewhere.
Yeah, and it's helpful because the way I see it is if you don't have that element and you don't have that mentor and you don't have that quote unquote coach or person to push you, you're just hitting at dead air at that point.
Exactly.
You don't have a wall to push up against.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're shadow boxing at that point, which is
kind of cool, actually.
It's cool. I mean, it's beneficial until you get into a real fight and you just start swinging your arms in the air and get punched in the face. Like, it's beneficial to a certain point, but at some point you have to have, real pushback, real conflict, real experience.
And then the ball is in your court, and I believe that's kind of a certain level of responsibility and emotional maturity on the part of the individual is to go that extra mile to achieve that level of flow, that state of ecstasy, that that Jimi Hendrix 10 strip deep.
Straight up, man. Yeah, it's interesting. But I feel like also a big part of that is just like getting out of your comfort zone whenever possible. And it's something that like I hate doing because like I just absolutely I don't know, like I try to do it as much as possible, but just the feeling of like trying something you've never tried before, hanging out with people you've never hung out with before, I mean just doing something you've never done before, it's like you go into it knowing that you're gonna mess stuff up, that it's not gonna be perfect, but at the same time if you're tenacious enough to just keep having at it, then it's no longer gonna be something uncomfortable to you. It's going to be something that you enjoy, or you just get so uncomfortable that you realize like this isn't for me. I'm going to focus my energy elsewhere because like I don't know, it's not, you can't be good at everything.
It's true, man. It's true. And it reminds me, I always try to bring it full circle. Joseph Campbell. It's like in Star Wars terms, it's like when Luke leaves the comfortability of the house with the uncle and the aunt, and he goes to that shady-ass bar in downtown Denver, in Dagobah or whatever.
Is that how you feel when you go to a bar in Denver?
Dude, that's how I feel, man. And, Joseph Campbell had this idea that you're crossing the threshold. You're going from the conscious, from the known, to the unconscious, to the unknown.
Definitely.
And, for him, there's 3 stages of development in the hero's journey, and that's the first one. The crucial one is that separation. Mm-hmm. That element of crossing the threshold, entering into the unknown. And a lot of people who have actually had a chance to sit down with and talk to over time it's very, very beautiful, but they've said when you feel that resistance, when you feel that pushback, when you feel that uncomfortableness in your deep, that deep inside of your core, don't run away from it because that's your natural inclination to do.
Yeah.
Run into it.
Well, exactly.
Engage with it.
Try to embrace it to the best of your abilities, and sometimes that shit'll kick you right back. You're like, okay. But other times, I mean, it's just one of those things where if you can break that like subconscious barrier down, it's no longer there. I mean, like it's
you condition yourself to a new element.
Exactly.
But it makes sense though that we would have that from a psychological perspective because that served us a purpose once upon a time in the development of us as humans. Like,
it still is.
We needed to know when you hear that fucking rumbling in the bush, like you had to be alert, like holy shit, that's a fucking saber-toothed tiger, or oh shit, that's like a fucking mammoth, we need to get out of here. But like we don't have that as much anymore, but yet we still have that, I would say, genetically conditioned aspect of being human, where it's like what we don't know scares the shit out of us. It makes us incredibly uncomfortable, and we don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And yet, it's still something for us to overcome, to rise above, and to really engage with. And I just think that's really worth noting and bringing up.
It is. Like, I forget, it might have been like JRE or something, but I don't know, he's like, there's like this conversation. I'm pretty sure it's Joe Rogan and somebody else. I'm not 100% sure, but they're talking.
Fair
about...
to give him a shout out.
Shout out to Joe. Just like generally, like they're talking about like the difference between like winners and losers, and like as much as I hate saying like the word "oh, you're a loser," like you have to acknowledge that there are certain people that are vastly more successful than other people, and like there might be a determining factor of that, but basically like it's just like the characteristics of winners versus losers, and like winners or like the vastly more successful are going to be far more willing to just have that grit and that determination to get out of their comfort zones, to experience new things, to really embrace the things that they're good at, whereas those less successful individuals are just kind of trapped in their comfort zone, you know? They're just sticking with the stuff that they're comfortable with. They're not trying new things. They're not trying to really improve their career. They're not trying to develop new relationships because they're fine with the ones they currently have. And I feel like it's just that tenacity of just trying to get out there and find the next best thing and not just get complacent with what you have, you know?
I guess I would respond to that where we are at a point in time, though, where if you have the means and the resources and the ability, you don't ever have to leave your house for anything, Jack. You want to order food? There's an app for that. You need to go anywhere to go do something? No, there's somebody who will drive you there. You want to engage in a relationship of the physical sorts? There's an app for that.
There's a boy in Japan pretending to be a girl just for you.
Just for you. So I guess you know what I'm getting at is previously there were forces, whether physically or non-physically or conscious or subconscious.
Just call them external sources.
External sources that could nudge you to basically push you into that comfort or push you out of that comfort zone. But now there's so many crutches, there's so many distractions, there's so many things in place. This little thing in our hand, this little bit of technology.
They're beautiful, but they're evil.
There's more things enabling us negatively to not push us into
completely. So I would make the argument that just now more than ever is when people have to be encouraged to really get out of their houses, because it's just like
forced.
Well, in a perfect world, forced, but in our current world, encouraged. It's just like, I don't know. That's the thing. Like, if you're totally satisfied with just living in your house and doing whatever it is that you do that enables you to only live in your house, like, and that's how you're happy, like, by all means, go for that. But then, I don't know, just realize that at the end of the day, like, you're probably not going to go down in any history books. Like, you're not, like, I don't know, there will be fond memories of you, but your name isn't going to be burned into history. You're just kind of going to be another grain of sand on the beach.
But what about Emily Dickinson, Jack?
Oh, Dickinson. Don't get me started on Dickinson.
So that makes me think of, there's this idea in psychology, philosophy, all the humanities where, like, you can do all right on your own. In fact, you can do it in one moment after this thought. You can do pretty well on your own, but only for so long.
Yep.
If you want to do great and actually achieve, Felix Kitchen. I'd love to. Let's see. I think Addison. Cool. Classic Addison not showing up.
Bailed last minute,
dude.
Well, I'm glad I didn't bail last minute because this would have been awkward.
I actually thought about that. I would have just reflected on the last few Toonami Society podcasts. Drank a beer, smoked a hemp joint, and rolled out. But we find that we actually excel and do a lot better when we're with groups and we're with people, and we have that sense of community and have that sense of togetherness. And I think that's pretty self-evident, and it's pretty cool that we're finding studies to really back up that assertion and that claim. And I think really I would argue that to achieve that state of flow, that's where we achieve that, is with others. Because others keep us in check. Others let us know when we are slipping. Others 100%. Are like, you're doing fucking great and I love you, keep that up.
Well, yeah, others give you like acknowledgement and appreciation, but at the same time they give you criticism and like all those other lovely negative things that turn you into a better person, like
that.
It is interesting.
That's a nice trim.
Lovely.
Yeah, I didn't really know when we talked about flow states where we would end up.
Probably talking about boofing, because I'm here.
Yeah, Jack, I knew we'd get to that at some point. But really, it did get me reflecting on my own experience with flow states.
Yeah, where would you say that you've been in a flow state before, Gabriel?
For me, I mentioned the cruiser rides earlier. You're riding along, you got, I guess, actually, Jack, if you would enlighten our listeners to what the cruiser ride is, like that famous Instagram video of yours where you explained what the hell I was actually doing and you were one of the only people to do it. Would you explain what the cruiser ride is for our listeners?
So, essentially the cruiser ride is a group bicycle ride that occurs in Boulder, Colorado on Thursday nights. And essentially we have social media essentially disseminating the information about where and when it's going to occur. And then everybody kind of meets up in a park. Starts circling around on their bicycles until there's a couple hundred people, and then they all go off in a certain direction and just start biking around. And what's cool about it is they have lights on their bikes, they have music playing, they have costumes on and stuff like that. But the really cool part about it is that whenever you bike by pedestrians, anyone you see on the street, everybody simultaneously just kind of shouts out "Happy Thursday." So although it can get a little rowdy and it can seem a bit degenerate at times, just generally having people biking around you screaming "Happy Thursday" at you seems to be fun. People like it, and pedestrians like it, and cyclists like it. I don't know. It's an experience, to say the least.
And as somebody who has facilitated and organized these rides for so long, like I was mentioning earlier, when I started doing this, I never just started doing it, Jack. I started showing up with a lightsaber, and eventually people just started yelling, "Follow that guy, he's got a light on his back." So I was just kind of thrust into it, and I just fucking went with it, man. Never had an opportunity to really step up into a position of leadership. Nobody ever followed me on anything. I never took the lead on any projects. I never had that much confidence, and here I was, fucking every week. Then after, with all these hundreds of people following me and their lives literally in my hands, dude.
Yeah.
And I remember this one marvelous woman, Amanda Pearl, not Amanda Bowman.
Ironic, though.
I know, funny, right? She taught me how to ride no hands.
Yep.
On a bike.
It's all about confidence.
And I just remember this one time, Jack. I'm riding I'm leading the cruiser ride. I'm doing it. I'm feeling the flow. And I have the lightsaber. And I just fucking do it. No hands.
Yep.
Lightsaber in one hand. Directing. People go this way. And I'm doing it.
You're like a general going into battle.
I'm on my bike. And we're just heading forward on my mechanical steed into the war. And it was organized chaos at its finest, and for all intents and purposes, it shouldn't work. It should never have worked, but by God,
kudos to you for actually saying intents and purposes and not intensive purposes, because that is a big one that few people actually get.
I actually did Google it the other day, but rarely in my life have I felt that no matter what I do in this situation, these people will go wherever it is that I lead them. And I would just signal it, and felt complete disconnect from myself. Time and space didn't exist.
Like Moses on a bicycle.
Yes, and here we were, this length of people, this giant snake of mythic proportions, and it worked. By golly, it worked. Now, has that feeling stayed with me every single ride? No. But I still feel remnants of it. I still feel that element of it, and for me, I'd love to be able to feel that more, but there was something beautiful in the fact that there was nobody there to be like, no, Gabe, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
No, Gabe, actually, the correct form is with the left hand. I had to figure it out with trial and error, and there's something really heavy about that, where when you don't have anybody there to teach you how to do things, man,
Yep.
it's fucking heavy. It's definitely heavy.
Oh, it is, man, and it definitely makes it more difficult. But I feel like it makes the end product more unique almost, because I mean, when you have mentors and teachers and stuff, some of their teaching style is going to go into what you're doing. But I mean, if you're completely self-taught, you're a unique entity right there, you know?
I agree. And that is not to say that I have not had some amazing teachers, because in fact I have. Some very influential people who have, I wouldn't say taught me anything, because, what's teaching, but they have definitely nudged me in the right direction.
A good nudge in the right direction is seldom a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I'd like to have that feeling more, though. But I think the older you get, the more it becomes a choice of what do you want to master and what do you want to do. Because we as humans, it seems like, they don't teach you that growing up, but we really like to learn things. We really like to learn things, understand it, get it, and then move on to the next.
See, I would argue that we only like to learn things that we show interest in. Because, there has been numerous things in my educational career that I have been taught, and it has been like nails on a chalkboard. It's just not pleasurable, not what I would consider enjoyable. But at the same time you're learning, I mean, you're getting some knowledge out of it, probably not as much as you would be if you were excited about the topic, but it is still learning. But I feel like if you really want to learn something, you have to show interest in it, which is why I'm always intrigued by people who, go back to school later in their lives, who, graduate high school, graduate college, what have you, and then start doing the 9-to-5 grind, start living, and then make the conscious choice of going back to learn about something. Because I feel like that's not something that you just, your parents told you, oh yeah, go to college, you have to get a degree, you have to go study. That's something where they were actually like, this is something I'm passionate about, this is something I want to learn about, and just the demeanor of those individuals in a classroom comparative to most kids is totally different. I mean, granted, you can tell because they look older than everybody else, but at the same time, the way they act in class, the questions they ask, just their actual, demeanor towards learning is, far different than a kid whose parents are just paying for them to drink beer and maybe crack a book every once in a while.
I agree. It seems like if academia in school teaches you anything, it's to appreciate the aspect of learning. Giving you something that not only pulls you, but pulls you in a way where you're like, yeah, that's cool. I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. Not just fucking do it for a piece of paper at the end of the time that says, you did it. You did what we wanted you to do, and you did great.
And you paid us a shitload of money. Good job.
Yeah, and I was fortunate enough, at least in my schooling, that I had teachers that really instilled that and nudged me in that direction and said, hey, if you want to do that, that's great. Don't go into debt unless it's something you care about. Learn for the sake of learning.
Yep.
And, for gosh sakes, learn critical thinking and emotional intelligence.
Truly. Those are two things that are never taught either. I mean, well, they are, but very, infrequently. And that's the thing. I mean, if you can, have emotional intelligence, you're good at creative problem solving and stuff, you're going to excel far more than an individual who's purely IQ alone. Because even that, I find it humorous in that I have majority of my friends at CU my entire time there, and my roommates were all engineers, and my brother's an engineer. I'm just used to being around engineers and stuff. But what's interesting about engineers, especially in their curriculum, is that they're taught essentially nothing about emotional intelligence. It's all literally just how equations, how you do stuff, what is feasible, what is not feasible, what is physically possible, what is physically impossible. But in doing that, I feel like all engineers should have to take some sort of interpersonal communications class or some sort of way to boost their EQ maybe just a little bit, because it's just although these guys are outrageously smart, and if you're friends with them, you can have deep conversations where you're learning stuff and they're learning stuff, but to the average people, it's just I don't know, my roommate's an engineer, and some of the shit that he'll just say to people, even if it's his first time meeting them, it's dude, you don't say that, but he's just so oh yeah, what was wrong with that? That was how I was feeling. It was just what I said. And it is interesting, how intelligent an individual, or I guess how intelligent an individual can be while still having very low EQ and not being able to read someone's face or read a room of people and like know how they're gonna feel if you say something. Like know that you should filter what you're gonna say before it comes out of your mouth and think about what everyone else is gonna think about what you say prior to saying it, because if you don't, like, it might piss some people off.
You know, it makes me think of the idea of, in Taoism there's this really funny story of this fish. These like two fish they're young, and they go up to this older fish and they're like, "Hey man, we heard from that little the little sand shark that eats all the tasty stuff in the ground. He told us about this thing called water. Can you tell us about it?" And the old fish is like, "Oh man, let me hit this hemp joint." So this water thing that you're talking about, I'll lay it on you like this. It's always around us. You're breathing it in, and every moment it's touching you, it's interacting with you, and you don't even realize it's there. It's really cool. It's a very simple story, but the way that I think of that is almost, breathing. Like, we do this thing naturally.
Subconsciously.
Without even realizing it, until we take a reflection in and we're like, we're doing that. We're breathing in, we're breathing out. That's the same way I feel about language. I don't know if you ever took Spanish in high school, but...
Oh, yes.
Or one of those languages.
I took 2 years of Spanish in high school, 2 years of Chinese in high school, and then CU told me that if I had taken 3 years of Spanish, I would have been good, but since I only took 2 of each, I needed to take 4 semesters of one of the two, so...
That's tough, Jack.
Yo hablo mucho español.
That's tough, but... it's the idea that, we speak English. We've always spoke English. We've spoke English since elementary school, middle school, through high school, through college. But if somebody was to sit us down and be like, "Hey, Jack, can you teach me about, like, the syntax of the English language, the grammar, the spelling, the syntax? Could you just break this down for me structurally and the methodology behind it?"
Oh, it's English. Are you kidding me?
Well, it might be easy, but at the same time, you might have...
No, it's difficult, man. English, comparative to, like, a lot of other languages, is fucking really hard to learn.
A little all over the place.
Yeah.
So... that's how I feel about things like communication, where we do this on a normal basis hundreds of times a day.
Oh, I can do this while I'm blacked out.
Jack,
I won't remember my name, but I'll be able to talk.
You are the jack of all trades, but for most people, they do it every day, and they do it subconsciously, not realizing that.
Yeah.
Just like any sort of humanities subject, it's an art form, it's a skill, it's a craft, and it's really funny when somebody becomes very specialized, like in the sense of engineering, become very specialized in dealing with problems.
Yeah.
Give me a problem and I will give you a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And then other skills like, "Hey man, can you just like go up and talk to that person who you've never met before and just like keep it mellow, don't get too metaphysical or deep or bring up problem solving," and they find difficulty in that.
Oh, so much difficulty. And like the funny thing is, like, you can be amazing at problem solving, but problem solving and compassion aren't linked. Like literally problem solving and your ability to like go up to somebody, look at their face, look at their body language, say a few words to them, get like their vocal inclination out of it and everything, and just like really make a picture of like, okay, like what's this person's emotional state right now? Have I felt like this before? And if I were feeling like this, how would I want to be spoken to? Like, and like there's, I don't know, that shit goes through my head in like fucking a millisecond, like every time I'm like talking to somebody. But for some people, like trying to consciously break that down, like, I don't know, they'd be sitting there for a minute just like thinking about what to say. But I feel like, I don't know, it's just one of those things, and like being an individual with a relatively higher EQ, and I wouldn't call myself like an empath by any means, but like I can definitely get a reasonable feel for somebody's emotional state, and then like, I don't know, speak to them accordingly, because I feel like that's huge. Like,
and it's a skill you've cultivated and grown and really fostered over time, I imagine, or it's just probably come to you naturally too.
Yeah, I don't know, probably a little bit of both, just because like my mom always said that my EQ is far higher than my brother's, but I always just kind of thought that was a nice way of her saying your brother's IQ is a lot higher than yours. I don't know. It's one of those interesting things, though. I mean, like, and people can be very successful with either one, Like, I feel like a good mix of the two is probably the healthiest, but, like, truly, like, if somebody is really, really high in EQ or IQ, they can both be successful, probably in different ways.
I say, I just want to give a shout out to Twiddle Farms.
Good old Twiddle.
I just wanted to take a twiddle break. Classic twiddle break. For those of you who don't get that reference, Twiddle Farms is a farm, I believe, out of Oregon.
Yep.
That provides smokable hemp flour, of which me and Jack may or may not be actually partaking, for the record. And just super nice, super enjoyable, super smooth, and
it doesn't get you stoned. It's essentially the equivalent of decaf coffee, but it still does something.
It definitely does something, because I definitely feel something.
It's definitely the cannabinoid entourage effect of just not having below 0.3% THC, so obviously not psychoactive levels, but then having relatively higher levels of CBN, CBG, CBD. CBN is going to make you feel sleepy. CBG is going to make you feel awake. CBD is going to be an analgesic. So, if you're really looking at all different types of drugs, like there's mainly stimulants, depressants, analgesics, and psychedelics. And, I don't know, cannabis is all of them, but straight up hemp flower with no THC doesn't have any psychoactive effects. So you're basically just getting everything else out of it.
Jack, I couldn't have summed it up better myself.
Benefits of working in the hemp industry.
Seriously, man. Seriously, we're pretty lucky and pretty grateful and pretty appreciative for that, man. Really.
Most definitely, man. Yeah, I'm appreciative of the opportunities that have occurred for me.
I agree, man. I agree, and I couldn't be happier to be working with you. And for those of you who are wondering what the relationship between Jack and I is,
Gabe is my estranged lover.
Oh, plot twist.
Alright, I'm gonna take it.
Okay, do it, Jack. Jack and I actually work together in the same office at the same company business we work at, and I'm pretty lucky and grateful and appreciative to work with a young man of his caliber and his skill set. He's very inspiring, very thoughtful, amazingly skilled, and just an overall very conscientious individual who's very aware of his surroundings and what he does. And it's very, very inspiring on a daily basis. And what Jack has not mentioned in this podcast, which is rather surprising, is Jack actually has his aviation pilot's license, and so he is actually capable of taking people on planes, flying them up into the sky, flying them all over the world if they so choose. And to me, when I think of a flow state, I think of the very traditionalist view of the Buddhist monk or the religious practitioner, the mythic individual that has spent 10,000 hours doing what it is that they have done forever. And with that comes this certain level of skill, certain level of knowledge, certain sense of mythical and religious understanding.
Oh, you're not still talking to yourself, Gabe? Come on.
No, I kind of tapered off a little bit of there. I gave you.
You gotta get on that Alex Jones level, man. You just gotta aggressively get in arguments with yourself.
My brother does that with his YouTube videos. He does like rants in his motorcycle helmet, and I've never.
Does he have a motorcycle?
I think you'd actually really like it. It's a pretty fucking legit motorcycle.
I'm sure I
would. But that's mostly his YouTube videos, is him just basically ranting to himself, imagining that he's talking to all these people. And like, I've never done a Toonami society by myself, but if I was, like, I totally would be willing to do it. But it just seems a little weird and not my style, because I'm much more interpersonally based. Like, I want somebody there, I want the eye contact, I want the active listening. I want the non-verbal cues, Jack.
Of course. My third favorite kind of cue.
It would just be weird to me knowing that there's like a few people that could be listening to it, but I don't know who you are or what you're doing or what your background is. And I'm, call me old school, call me traditionalist, but I'm I like having people to talk to. I can't really talk to a microphone in a bike helmet. But
No,
I guess then again, I never have.
I feel that, and it's like I definitely like I don't know like have like I talk to my like I don't literally talk to myself because I know people who actually do that who will like have like conversations with themselves to figure something out, and like I do that all non-verbally. I mean, it's just like the I don't know voice in my head or whatever that I'm just talking like in my head, not actually verbalizing. But it's kind of interesting because like I've spoken with many people who like they find it beneficial to actually talk to themselves, like they're trying to like figure a problem out. Like I don't think I'm capable of that, like verbally, like just like being alone and be like, oh wow, like that was wild. Like so, what's the best way to go about figuring this out? Like I feel like I'd have to be like Castaway with fucking Wilson to get into that shit.
Wilson.
Like, Wilson.
I get you. I hear that. I've definitely walked out scenarios in my head though, and kind of like spoken them out loud to gain a sense of like perspective or grounding myself. But yeah, if you started associating with those, like heavily being like like playing out a dialogue in your head, it's like okay, man, you've gone to the next level.
Which is like it can be good, but at the same time, like you seem a little batty. Like I don't know.
a little out there, partner.
If you ever walk into our office and see me like adamantly talking with myself or arguing with myself, you should be worried.
That's when I hit Jack with a kendo stick like a Zen Buddhist teacher. That's how I jostled Jack.
You guys snap me out of the crazy.
That's how I jostled Jack out of the crazy mindset. Hitting him in the back.
Well, like my grandma always said, better the back than the sack.
Did your grandma really say that? No, man.
Of course not.
How dare you?
She was a lovely lady.
How dare you bring that up, man?
It's just something about misquoting your grandmother. Quite humorous.
You're a wild man. I kid you not. Well, I rolled up a very tiny little 1 or 2 hit pinner.
Ooh, it's an itty
One
bitty
two
boy.
hit. I didn't have much hemp flour. I only brought a nug or 2, but I'm learning with hemp flour, Jack. I'm probably gonna have to restock.
So, Gabe, I must ask, where did you get the little pink container?
Darla actually gave it to him, my girlfriend, and she it's a Pepto-Bismol container.
Really?
I like it. I don't like the color, but check this out. You can't screw it. You actually have to hold down with your thumb. Oh, tea tree. Okay, so the container I'm using to hold the hemp flour that I brought with me is a little Pepto-Bismol container, and Jack actually has one for tea tree toothpicks. Coincidence? I think not.
Getting real devious. It's actually an Advil bottle that I put a toothpick on.
Plot twist.
So what's really in the container?
Plot twist, Jack. You keep me guessing, man.
That's what I do.
Thought you were gonna bust out the space pen for a moment or something. Get a little weird. Right, Jack. Episode 16. Fucking do it.
Down with the chocolate swirls, Gabe would say.
Fucking getting down with the space current, man. Seriously. I love it.
God.
I love it. Yeah, man, you and Justin got me all on this hemp train. I gotta say.
Want PBR?
I'm good, but I might take you up near the end. Once I'm shutting down for the night, there's nothing like having an extra brew.
Shout out to Pabst Blue Ribbon, the best worst beer of them all.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you were in Japan. That's essentially the best Japanese beer that I could find, at least in 2012. Was equivalent to Pabst Blue Lager. It's like, okay, this is like Pabst.
Bro, you weren't getting heavy on that Sapporo grind, man?
No, Sapporo tastes like, I'd say, a little bit better than Pabst.
Explains why I love it so goddamn much.
And it smokes so fucking good, dude. It's like so sticky, and it's so like, you wouldn't think that it would smoke good, but yeah, here we are.
Hemp flower?
Well, originally what I had planned on talking about tonight was, I believe that, and I wanted to bring this full circle, so I'll just bring this up, is Aristotle, who's one of my boys.
Naturally. Aristotle, young.
He had this idea that to achieve what he called the good life, which I loved it. He had all these weird Greek terms for things, because, he was Greek.
Yep.
He called it eudaimonia. which roughly translates to the good life. And Aristotle thought, and this is where I learned in ethics, is Aristotle thought that by achieving the good life, you utilize the... Oh, don't worry, I got it. He thought that to utilize and understand the good life, just look to those around you. Look to the people you're interacting with. Look to your sense of community and who's there, and see who's living the most fulfilling life. And don't copy them, because life is not about copying people.
Yeah.
But you can learn through emulation how to find your own flow and to achieve it yourself. So Aristotle would say, like, I loved it. My teacher used to say, like, look to a professional sports person like Tony Hawk,
Yep.
where when he is skating, he is in his zone. Rodney Mullen's a great example. Yeah. When they are skating, they are in their flow. They are doing their thing. They are in that state of mind where they just fucking do it and they get it and fucking crush it. And look to them as an example, because when they're doing it, it's not work. It's not a fucking job. They're not doing their 9-to-5 gig. They're not clocked in.
Yep.
They're doing it because they love it, and they're successful because of it.
Yeah.
It's almost like Joseph Campbell saying, "Follow your bliss."
Find what you love, and success will find you. Like,
yeah, and there's a balance to be had with that, because Aristotle thought that just like what you done to me, he used the example of courage, where, let's say you stumble on one of your friends and they're getting into a fight, and you're like, oh shit, I gotta go help that guy who I kind of know. And right as you're about to go and rush into the fight, you think to yourself, you're like, oh, wait, like, there's like 12 of them and one of him. I don't think they're gonna kill this kid, but if I go in, I'm probably gonna get my ass whooped. But if I run away, I'm gonna be kind of a coward. How can I find this middle ground, this sort of, I'd almost argue, a middle way? How can I achieve this, quote-unquote, this balance?
Yep.
This way of equilibrium. And you also find that same notion in Buddhist philosophy with the middle way that the Buddha espouses. And I don't know, man. I thought a lot about, and how that correlates to flow states is looking to people as a source of inspiration, and people who are there to, even on a subconscious level, whether they're saying it consciously or not, they're like there to be like, hey man, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I might nudge you in that way, but it's achievable. It's right over there.
Yeah, what you're talking about kind of reminds me of something, and it wasn't even something that my dad would say on a regular basis. It's just like one specific time he told me this, and like I was like a young kid, but it is still like stuck with me to this day, and I think about it on like maybe not daily, but definitely a weekly basis. And I forget who it was, but like we were hanging out with like one of his buddies who's just like this like really cool guy, like super successful, doing like all the things like right in life. And like I just remember like talking to my dad and like, wow, like that guy's like the coolest guy ever. Like, oh man, like you must be like so jealous of him. And like my dad just kind of like chuckled. He's like, no, like there's no reason to like ever be jealous of someone, because there's always going to be something that person isn't quite as good at that you might be better at. But then also, instead of trying to like define that as like jealousy, instead it's a source of inspiration. Like literally, if you have somebody that you're jealous of, instead of like trying to be jealous of them, take it as a source of inspiration and say like, this person, like I like these traits of this person's personality, and I feel like this is why they're successful, why, I don't know, generally you're attracted to what they do. But then to take that and try to project it on yourself, for maybe even if it's just like that day or that week, being like, this person's good at that, I'm not so good at that, and then just focusing on that aspect of yourself until it builds up and you don't focus on it anymore. And like I feel like that definitely just builds you as a person, and I've really tried to emulate that, and just like people that I've met where it's like, that's cool, like the way that guy dealt with that situation I would not have done, but I'm going to start trying to deal with situations like that because like that was cool. And then like after a while it just becomes habit.
I agree, man. It reminds me of two ideas, which is, one, there will always be something someone knows that you don't know.
Of course.
So even if it's somebody you don't like, the chance to interact with them and learn something that they know that you don't know. They have
information that can benefit you.
Yeah. And then there's also the idea, and this is a business idea, is always hire somebody who does something better than you.
Yes.
Like, find whatever it is and be like, okay, they're better than me at that, because you want to hire people who are more exceptionally skilled from you. Not only is there obviously something to learn from that, but
it'll diversify your business skill set, you know?
Yeah,
It's like diversifying your assets in a portfolio, but just viewing a business as your portfolio and assets as individuals who bring different things to the table.
Yeah, it's incredibly valuable, and once again, they don't teach you that in school, you know? Finish her off, Jack. One more, dude. It's all you. I love that. Man, I love these hemp joints. I'm gonna start bringing these more. You know, it's really nice too with this because I don't feel I feel good. I feel comfortable. I feel that certain.
I feel like I just drank an Alpha Brain.
yeah, but I don't feel bogged down. I don't feel
exactly.
I feel chilled, and I definitely feel laid back, but I don't feel bogged down.
It's the benefits of cannabis without THC, you know?
Yeah, seriously. I love it, man. But, yeah, I really like where this whole conversation has gone, where it's jumped around, where it's gone to, you know. I appreciate having some one-on-one time to really chat with you, Jack.
Most definitely. Not that we ever have one-on-one time together, but actually having a defined couple-hour period to just straight up talk with no interruptions. I feel like that's a unique experience that has never occurred before.
With what? You and me?
Yeah, the two of us. I don't think we've ever had this long a conversation with just the two of us before. So, first time for everything, but I dig it. I mean, we have a fucking ungodly amount of conversations between just the two of us on a daily basis because we work together in the same office, but like actually just this long sitting down, focusing on one topic, like it's not something you get to do every day.
Yeah, and it's something I'm pretty damn appreciative for. And once again, you know, there was an opportunity where I could have a one-on-one session with numerous people throughout the whole 16 episodes that we've been doing this, and it's only happened I'd say partially once, which is episode 10, Sex in the Future, where I believe that it was just me and Allie for the first 20 minutes. And I was like, wow. Like,
that's kind of awesome.
This is cool.
I need to go back and listen to that. You might have just sent me like a Google like Drive or something.
But unlike tonight, Addison actually did show up 20 minutes in, and he was the surprise guest, and it was 3 of us. And, you know, I found a lot of really cool content and conversations come out of 2 to 3 people groups, but rarely have I ever found just a one-on-one session, and so I find myself quite honored, quite humbled, and quite privileged to say, Jack, you have been the first ever one-on-one actual podcast for the Toonami Society. In that regard, I really
I'm glad I can go down in history as that, but I mean, truly, like, I feel like if there's anybody you're going to talk one-on-one on for 2 hours with, somebody that you spend this much time around with doesn't hurt. Like, we got good chemistry, again.
I agree, Jack.
It's been chemistry in progress, but we got good chemistry.
And to believe at first, you were like, nah, I don't know about this guy, man. I don't know about this dude.
Jack attack!
And you're like, who the fuck is this dude? Dude, how old are you? Like 28, man? You are out of here, dude. No. For context, for listeners, if there are listeners for this, when Jack first met me, a friend of his who had previously worked with me had told him, oh, Jack, just so you know, I worked with this Gabe guy. He's super nice. He works hard. He's all right, but he talks a lot. He definitely talks a lot, so just have a heads up. And one of the first times I met Jack, I ended up like giving people nicknames. Something to... I really like having something to riff with them about, and so I called Jack Jack Attack for a while, and it wasn't until months on months, in fact 11 months later, that during the leadership seminar there was one question where it was, what's one thing I should know about this person and stop doing, and one of the participants said, stop calling Jack Attack. And I just looked at Jack and was like, I never knew. I never knew.
That's the thing, though. Like, I just fucking burst out laughing when he said that, because it was really only something that, like, I wouldn't even say concerned me, but only something that irked me for about the first, like, 2 weeks until I started calling you Gabby Gabe, and then you stopped calling me Jack Attack. So, like, after that point, we had reached a good middle ground. Yeah. And I think the fact that Blaine said that at that meeting was hilarious because, like, in the first week, I was good buddies with Blaine. I mentioned that to him. I was like, my God, like, if Gabe calls me Jack Attack one more time, I'm gonna explode. But like, it's
upside his head.
It's just funny looking back on that shit now, man, and just like, yeah, our initial impressions of one another, and then just how far our relationship has evolved since then. It's pretty unique, man.
And to believe, we've gone through so many transitions at our job and
new coworkers who are no longer with us.
Exactly.
Like,
your beard has grown approximately 3 to 5 inches since I've met you. I mean,
beard is officially twice as long as my penis.
Chef, stricken from the record. Oh God, Jack, you're funny.
Grandma jokes and small dick jokes,
And see, that's why
I don't leave home without them.
That's why the Toonami Society podcast is pretty special, because we don't edit, we don't revise, and we don't change anything up. It's all raw, it's all real, and it's start and finish, man. It's all start and
That's
finish.
why I love it.
Yeah, me too, man. It's been really special. I'm really appreciative to be able to kind of jump into a one-on-one session too, because I want to be able to be more comfortable. I do great with a group dynamic when there's people I can just kind of riff with and throw some stuff out and just kind of pull back. I like that, but when you're with somebody one-on-one, there's a little bit more engagement that's required, a little bit more attentiveness, and a little bit more dialectic.
And the intriguing thing about being like this one-on-one, like it's literally just Gabe and I in the room right now. Like we don't have a Jamie. Like if we had like some other guy who's just silent but like Googling shit for us and like generally chuckling at our jokes, I feel like that would make this an entirely different experience.
It would. One day, Jack.
Oh, I will be Jamie, man. I'm literally just going to sit at the end of the table as you're interviewing like Elon Musk and just be like, what do you want me to Google?
Jack, can you look up DMT space pens for us?
Alright, not getting anything for space pens on results, but DMT's pulling up a lot.
Well, that's the hope one day. But for now, it's evolving, it's growing. As we were talking about previously before we started the podcast, I really like this space. I'd like to continue to do it. But, I see this setup, especially the equipment we're using, we can really take this anywhere, and I think that's really cool looking into the future, looking into the spring and the summer. It's like, dude, what if we like went on a fucking night hike with like a bunch of fucking people and we took this recording device and we just went and we sat.
We bring hammocks up into the mountain, man. That'd be fun.
Space pen at the end,
Fuck yeah.
And get weird. And we did the same hour and 30-minute set and we just fucking did it. And we keep doing this and we go pretty much wherever the wind takes us.
Totally. I mean, yeah, even if you were to do like a straight up like podcast camping trip or something, just like not far, just go up to like Gross Reservoir. It's like a fucking 40-minute drive from Boulder, but still absolutely beautiful up there. And like, yeah, just get a few groovy people together, make a little fire, get a couple beers and just start talking and see what happens.
Jack, would you look up DMT space pen? Gabe, I can't. We're in nature.
Gabe, I don't have cell phone service, damn it.
God damn it. Yeah, I always usually reflect on this in all of our podcasts, but just, I really do think there's something special about this. I think it's really cool. I can't believe we've gone to episode 16, and I'm pretty appreciative of that, Jack. So thank you again for being here.
Well, as you would say, I personally am keen on it.
I think that's fair, Jack. Well, I will say, Jack, it is Monday. It is two of us. We have made it to. I can't believe it. Literally, that time did just fly by.
Would you almost say we were in a flow state of game?
Whoa! Full circle, bringing it around. Joseph Campbell, initiation, separation, and return. I love it. With that being said, though, I'd love to give us an opportunity to have some final thoughts on it, ruminate for a minute or two on it, and then maybe we can do a brainstorming session between ourselves. That's how we usually finish these off. And we'll call it a night. I'll shut it down, ride my bike home, and
Groovy Tuesdays. Well, that'll be tomorrow, but
that's true. Soon, Jack. Soon. I'll get the timer out. Get that all set. For me, it's as always, it's pretty straightforward. I find myself really reflecting on this podcast and have not really knowing how it would play out. It was kind of funny that last minute, even the people who said they were going to come just kind of like, they were like, oh shit, man, I'm sick.
So I must ask, what were happening to your anxiety levels as people were just dropping out of the running?
So I tried to address this previously, and be like, hey, you guys have to give 24-hour notice. That way it's structured. I don't have to stress. This already has happened, like, I think 1 or 2 podcasts before where, like, it was Dakota, Rich, and Matt and myself, and they were like, yeah, like 10 minutes before, they're like, yeah, dude, I'm not going to make it. And I'm like, and then I like told the last member, I'm like, hey, I don't think everybody's showing up. And he's like, I'm just going to skip out on it then. And it's like, man, I had to like sit here and reflect on it and be like, okay.
Well, the thing is, like, you put a lot of, okay, maybe not a lot, but you put prior planning into these events. Like, you coordinate with everyone, you figure out a game plan for what you're going to talk about. Like, you do a lot. So for it to all come together and have, like, even if it's just a few people and you're just like, yeah, a few people, it's still worth it. And then just last minute, like, everybody bails. Like, that's gotta be kind of shitty, man.
You know, Jack, with that being said, success from failure. Even that speaks volumes.
Truly.
It's a free event. I'm not Joe Rogan. This isn't the most publicized... not yet. It's not the most publicized podcast. People aren't really, like... They're not, like, forced to be here. I understand that. And, for me, nothing's ever wasted if you learn something from it. I've created a no... drop policy. I'm still trying to work that out because clearly people did cancel it, but things come up. People are human. There's people who I love to come every time, like Allie or yourself or Soren, but things come up. Things happen. People are human. I can't really hold it against them in that regard, but just the fact that 1 or 2, maybe even 3 people do show up, I think is pretty cool and pretty special. And as this continues on and I meet more people and invite them to come do this, I hope that situation never happens again. But maybe if it does, maybe I follow my brother's Tokyo Rants videos on YouTube and I just decide to riff with the microphone for an hour and just really reflect upon my experiences and talk to whoever might be talking. Because
you've managed to transition from like 8 people to 1 person just fine. So I feel like if you really had to just go like all straight up like whacked out Kent Kesey and talk to yourself for 2 hours, like I feel like you could manage.
And, with that being said, there are people who are listening to these podcasts. I uploaded them, and each video has between 1 and 7 views, except for episode 10, Sex in the Future. I don't know how it happened. I don't know.
See, I've heard that was one of the most interesting ones.
I don't know. It actually was a really fun one between Addie and Allie and myself. But that video within, like, for some reason, like 2 weeks got like 410 views.
Of course it did.
I don't know how, Jack. I don't know how, but
what platform are you publishing these on?
YouTube. Because it's free.
Yep.
All about that free life. But with that being said, clearly it seems like it's interesting enough that some people have listened to it. And I just think it's really cool and special. And so I knew going into this, Jack, that if I created a side project that I would eventually fail. And understanding that when I have that failure, I am the one who has created this dichotomy. I have put myself up to this challenge. And so in a sense, I kind of was hoping eventually I'd be like, let me fail a little bit. Just like, give it to me. Like on the cruiser ride, let me fail. Let me take him down the wrong street. Let me take him to the top of a parking garage and somebody gets hurt. And then I realized, okay, that wasn't a smart move.
That's only happened twice.
Like 3 times.
2.5. One person only counted as half.
Don't look into that, Jamie. But, part of me really wants that failure because if I'm not failing, I'm not doing it right.
Precisely. No, and this is like one of the things I always say when I go skiing. It's like, at the end of the day, like ask my buddy, like, hey, how many times did you fall? I didn't fall at all. And I'd be like, okay, well, that obviously means you weren't fucking trying today. Because, like, no matter your skill set, if you're skiing and you're fucking hitting jumps, like trying to get sandy with it, and you don't fall at all, like, you're in your comfort zone. You're literally just dabbling around in your comfort zone. Like,
exactly.
You gotta take some chances and fail, and physically proves it by falling to really excel in something.
And I think that's a skill in and of itself to foster and cultivate because as we get older, it seems almost a natural progression that we fall into getting more comfortable in our comfort zone. So there's this aspect of like rebel against the dying of the light, as Goethe said, where you gotta hold on to that. You gotta cultivate that. You gotta foster that. And what better time to take that heroic call to adventure than now? Whoa,
Gabriel!
barking spiders! But what better time than now to really take that call to adventure, where we have one of the most powerful tools that we could have ever hoped to have had in our lifetime, and it fits into the palm of our hand and into our pockets. But with this power comes great responsibility, where if we want, we can get as lazy and destructive and enable ourselves as negatively as we want, or we can use it as a tool.
Exactly. And along with that comes, like, you have all this power on you at all times. Mm-hmm. So it's like the concept of not having to learn math because such a thing as a calculator exists, and most people have one of those on them when they need to do math. But, like, basically just realizing that although you might have one of the most, as known to man to this date, powerful tools in your pocket at all times, knowing that you're capable of being more powerful than that without it. Like, just knowing that with your skill set being tossed into a place. And one of my favorite psych professors, one of my favorite psych professors at CU, I would always just, like, go to his office hours and sit in the very front of his class, which I would never do for, like, any other people. But Joseph Berta is just the homie of all homies. And I would always go to his office hours and just shoot the shit with him. And he always told me, like, yeah, like, I still don't have a cell phone. And, like, it's just like, wow, like, in 2019, being, like, a modern professor, like, how the hell do you manage with that? And he's like, I don't know how I could manage with one. Like, if my... this guy's like 70 something, and he's like, if my girlfriend had my phone number, man, like, my life would be so stressful. But, like, I don't have a cell phone, so, like, she knows, like, she'll see me when I get home from work, and, like, I don't know, people who I don't want to talk to can't necessarily contact me. But also, like, that, it's just like he was talking about how he's so much more just engaged in social situations, because, like, he was a psych professor, but he's also a social psychology professor and stuff. And, like, he just talks about how nowadays there's so much social psychology that just goes unnoticed by people because they're all on their phones. So it's like everybody else on the bus is looking down at their phone, and, like, this one guy, Joseph Berta, is noticing, like, the 3 intriguing conversations are happening. The one guy who's acting weird. And it's just like, I tried doing that for a few weeks. Like, whenever I would go out somewhere, I would just leave my phone at home. Like, granted, if I had to Uber somewhere, I probably would take it with me. But, like, just trying to, as much as possible, leave that at home and just go out into the world and be like, okay, I know I can get around with my general knowledge. I know if I really don't know how to get somewhere, I can ask someone. And I know that, like, although I could have this fantastic piece of technology that can instantaneously play any song I want to hear, show me any place I want to be, I mean, it's essentially just, like, instant gratification in your pocket. But not having that, it really just builds you as a person,
I would agree. And, that's the challenge of our times, is to be connected when everything around us is telling us not to be connected, to be disconnected, disjointed, to be fucking lost in the clouds.
Yep.
And, you don't need to achieve that flow state, because you can just experience that in VR. Or
exactly.
You can just watch a YouTube video on all of Tony Hawk's greatest hits and just see him achieve it. You don't need to go out and actually get on the skateboard yourself. And, it's like the challenge to rise above it, man,
Definitely.
Like the band, Rise Against.
But the thing that's, like, dangerous about all this modern day technology and this instant gratification is that, like, it's been shown that, like, around the world, like, if you take, like blood samples from people and actually measure, like, their amounts of, like, neurotransmitters through, like, different, like, means of observation, it doesn't matter if you're in, like, a very... Well, it does, but, like, basically, like, if you're living, like people that are living in, like, African villages who are, like, starving and stuff and, like, literally just, like, working to get their food, like, they have very similar, if not higher, levels of dopamine and serotonin going through their brains on a normal basis. And it's just, like, if I don't know, like, they're smiling a lot. And it's just, like, just because we have access to all of this information and stuff, like, you get habituated to that instant gratification. Like, just because you have access to instant gratification all the time doesn't mean that's going to be sustained happiness. You're going to get used to that, and then some subconscious part of your mind is going to start telling you, like, this isn't enough, and like that's where people start feeling, I don't know, depression, anxiety, all of that stuff. But it's basically just like those base like fulfilling needs, like finding a good relationship, like finding love, finding, I don't know, where you want to be in life. I feel like instant gratification doesn't foster that. It does the exact opposite.
I would agree. And that's one of the epidemics of our time, besides loneliness.
All right, should we get back to that silent minute that we skipped past about 15 minutes ago?
You know, Jack, I would say that was the best, bringing it full circle, final thoughts, 15 minutes. And, you know, that's the first. It's the first time it's ever happened, and, you know, I was writing it off, and I was just going to let it happen.
Let it play, man.
You know, I've got my steps in for the day. So with that, we'll consider that as the kind of final thoughts, the conclusion, the touch-ups here at the end of the talk. And for the last few minutes, we're going to do a little 3-minute
Acro yoga.
Gabe will be the airplane. I will be the base.
We're going to do a 3-minute brainstorming session, and as always, shoot from the hip. I got a little box on my notebook ready to write down thoughts for our next topic.
All right, I'm going to share my most favorite one first.
All right, on the count of 3, 1, 2.
That's what I like to hear.
Come on. My phone is starting to crap out, Jack, but you know, these things happen. All right, boom.
All right, so my idea would be an unpublished drunk personal history podcast. So everyone partaking in the podcast must be intoxicated, and you must talk about something that's occurred to you in the past. And I think this needs to be unpublished just because people will be, I don't know, inebriated.
I think that's totally fair. Our viewers will be a little bummed. I don't know who they are.
It's
apparently who's listening, but
the viewers we really like can listen to it.
I like that. You know, for me, I guess I'm just like thinking pretty traditionally, like heroes. We mentioned like Eudaimonia, like Tony Hawk and achieving the flow states. I like the idea too. I brought up the correlation between Aristotle's Eudaimonia and the Buddhist middle way. I think there's validity to that. You know, we didn't get to talk about it, Jack, and I'm a little bummed, but I'd like to hear more about aviation.
Aviation, wow.
Specifically,
I'm going to skip out on that podcast. Yeah, no, I think that would be very cool. Also, like, I don't know, just the psychologist, I mean, childhood fears. Because I feel like that's something that shapes you as an individual. What you're terrified of as a child, and if that sticks with you, or if you're able to surpass that at some point.
Like that, I'll tie that into shadows.
Shadows, always a good one. Always on the list.
These good ones. You know, we brought this up earlier, Jack, and I feel like you're a great example of that. Rebellion.
Of course.
Rebellion.
Oh my god. You should have seen me in high school.
I can only imagine. I would say beards, Jack, but that would be too easy.
Yeah, it'd be too easy.
That'd be too easy.
My dad used to call me a cat burglar in high school because I would wear black skinny jeans and dark clothing. And I drove a black sedan as well, which probably didn't help. But, you know, if your dad can't give you shit, no one can.
The color black, because black's not a color. Double entendre. Man, what else? Containers.
Oh, don't get me started on containers. I could talk years on containers, man.
You know, I feel like we've talked about it before, but I really like...
Boofing?
No. I was going to say musicians. Musicians, Jack. Musicians.
That would be a good one, though. Especially if we get a couple people with instruments come in on said podcast.
That would be really cool. Because of your glasses, and I've already made this pop culture reference before, religious cults.
Ooh, see, I do look like a cult leader in these glasses.
You do, Far Cry 5.
Also, I mean, having grown up driving dirt bikes and motorcycles, you don't always have to wear a helmet, but you need eye protection legally. So I have grown up with numerous pairs of clear glasses, even though I have 20/20 vision. And every time I would wear them, or continue wearing them, My father would refer to them as birth control glasses because obviously no one could ever get laid wearing those. But I proved him wrong.
All right, Jack. We got 30 seconds left. What do you got for me?
30 seconds, beer.
Beer. Boom. Put that down. Beer.
Or just continuing my 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 honest thought that all good things start with the letter B.
The letter B. I like that, Jack. That's a great one. Camaraderie. Cool.
Fantastic. Well, looks like a handful of topics.
I like that. You know, I will say that we have a whole list so far that's going, and that is going on the list. So with that, we have come to the end of Toonami Society, episode 16, Flow States. Myself, Jack Paddington, signing off, wishing the rest of you an excellent rest of your night.
Nighty night all.
All right. See ya.